All right, just a really short one. Somebody, I can't remember who, left a comment about if I could do a video on purgatory. And I said in my reply that, it would be a very short video. So here it is, because I've only got a few minutes. So purgatory is obvious if you simply read the Bible. Not difficult. Of course, if you're illiterate, if you're a Protestant that's been brainwashed, or some other sect, then you won't believe in purgatory. But that's because you can't read. Purgatory is very plainly evident in 1 Corinthians 3, 11 to 15, which I'm just going to pick I don't know which version of the Bible this is. It's just an online one. I didn't, my Catholic Bible is upstairs, and wife and kids are asleep, so I'm not going to go up and get it. But if you read 1 Corinthians 3, 11 to 15, I believe it reads something as, "For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if anyone builds on the foundation with gold, silver, precious stone, woods, hay, stubble, each man's work will become manifest. For the day will disclose it, because it will be revealed with fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work which any man has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. If any man's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire." It's literally plainly written. And that's not the only passage, of course. There are other passages in, of course, 2 Maccabees, which, of course, Luther pulled out of the Bible. I wonder why. Because it's a clear thing that the original Jews, the Old Testament Jews, obviously believed in there being a penance after death that you could expiate by prayer, and indulgences. Guess what? Doing a collection, paying money. Now, purgatory leads to the idea of indulgences as well, because what is an indulgence? An indulgence is a payment that was usually done to the church, but not necessarily always money. It could be a payment of work, of your labor. It could be prayer. It could be many things. But generally, it was often a donation of money, land, precious items, or so on, to reduce the amount of time that souls that were in purgatory would stay in purgatory. Now, to your average Protestant, this sounds absurd. But if you look at it logically, it makes perfect sense. I mean, what you're saying is there is a punishment, right, that is due for you not being perfect. And also, again, purgatory. Why purgatory? Do you think you drop dead right now and you've been a relatively good Catholic? Do you think you're good enough to just walk into heaven, the perfect place where everything is perfect and everyone there is clean and pure? And no. You're basically saying you're a pig covered in pig shit, and you're now going to enter the king's palace, which is spotless. Do you think that you're just going to get in there from your pigsty direct? No. You would have to probably have your skin scrubbed off first, then be disinfected, and then probably turn into something that doesn't look like a pig before you can step into the king's palace that is spotless. It's just common sense. But, and again, given that you are an imperfect being, and essentially your imperfection is a spiritual flaw, which we all have, and you're now spending time in purgatory to get purified, why would prayer not have an effect? Of course it would. If you're praying for somebody that you care about that's in there, and you're essentially devoting energy, spiritual time, whatever you want to call it, to making that situation better. And is a cold hard cash good enough? Well, yeah, for the very simple reason that you giving a donation of X amount of money to the Catholic Church, and I'm talking about the Catholic Church, not the Novus Ordo Church that's run by Bergoglio, vicar of pedophiles on earth. No, you giving money to the church allows the church to do some good deeds, whether it's help build part of a cathedral, which is what mostly happened, or whether it's to, feed orphans, feed widows, and whatever. Now, it's true that, of course, a corrupt priest or a corrupt bishop or whatever could steal the money and use it for their own personal uses. But then that sin is on them. It's not on you. Your intent was clean and clear. And, why would that reduce the penalty for anybody that's in purgatory? Well, because, again, you have spent time, effort, on some level. You have given of yourself somehow in order to make that donation, which, again, assuming, you're not dealing with totally corrupt priests, goes to do good, goes to help the kingdom of God on earth, goes to help the church militant. So why would not God recognize that? Of course he would recognize that. Just like he would recognize any good works that you do, whether it's, helping widows, visiting prisoners, all the usual stuff, doing good stuff, basically, doing good deeds. Of course they count. Of course they go in your balance. And all that you're saying is, and you have the free will to do this, is like, don't put it on my tab, put it on my friend's tab, put it on my brother's tab, put it on, my wife's tab, whoever's passed on that is in purgatory. So of course it makes perfectly logical spiritual sense. The more you read, I strongly suggest read the Patristic Fathers, read the books I suggest to you about, God's battalions and Bearing False Witness, both books by Rodney Stark. Read those actual historical factual things, and you'll realize that the positions of the Catholic Church are eminently reasonable, perfectly logical, make absolute sense. So I don't know why people are confused by this stuff. Literally all you got to do is read the New Testament. You don't even really need to read the Old Testament. The Old Testament is sort of like a reference work, but it's written, the original Hebrew is written in ancient Hebrew has got a grammatical structure that you can't even really describe in Western languages, whether Romantic languages or Anglo-Saxon languages, Teutonic languages. Ancient Hebrew has got a metaphorical structure to it that means that they can be talking about historical things, metaphorical things, or a mix of the two in certain proportions that we just don't have in the English language, for example. So you sort of have to be a bit of an expert to try and understand where the fine line between historicity and metaphor and parable is. But overall, all that the Old Testament is, at the end of the day, is a bunch of prophecies prophesizing the coming of Jesus. Essentially, that's really what the Old Testament boils down to. And it's interesting, certainly. But, I would focus more on reading the New Testament. It's a lot shorter, for you millennials that struggle with long passages. And it's more to the point. And really just read it. I have since, I've got a variety of Bibles. I use quite a lot the Nestle Interlinear Greek one, which is quite interesting because it has the usual sort of common text in English down the side, and it has the Greek in the middle of the page with word-for-word translation of the Greek. And you will find that there are discrepancies between the Greek translated word for word and the general text in English down the side, which is very interesting. But I, of course, have not found that level of discrepancy, and I tend to find that it has in fact been the Douay Remy. It's called the Douay Remy Bible, which is the Catholic Bible. is a very good translation overall. And I still go back to the Nestle one, looking at their Greek words in their original, and then trying to understand the actual Greek word, because the original language is always important. And for those morons that say, I've also got an Aramaic New Testament, and people say, they laugh, you don't know anything, Aramaic wasn't one of the original languages of the Bible. No, you dumbass Protestant. There are fragments of the Gospels in the Dead Sea Scrolls and other old, predating most of the documents that we have that are in Aramaic. There is absolutely a clear phraseology in the New Testament that is Aramaic construction. Now, what people are saying is like, but that was, Aramaic spoken word that was translated into Greek, because the New Testament was written in Greek. Perhaps. But wouldn't you like to know what the actual Aramaic sentence was, especially when we have fragments of the Gospels that do tell you that in Aramaic? So no, it is absolutely relevant. It is, detailed and not necessary work. It's not important necessarily that you have an Aramaic, a Greek, a Latin, and an English Bibles and all of the above. But if you're into it, it's pretty interesting. But whatever New Testament you've got available, just get one. Get a New Testament. I do suggest you avoid King James, although the King James Bible was one of the first ones I picked up and started reading. I say avoid it because the King James Bible is a translation into English of Bibles, books that had been translated and sort of re-edited by essentially Pharisees for 600 or 700 years. So why would you want to use that Bible? Use the Doremi Bible translated into English is fine. If you can read Latin, you can read the Vulgate, and have an interlinear Greek. A decent interlinear Greek Bible is good. I used to have quite a good one that was, but the writing, as I become wiser, my eyesight for reading becomes. I don't need to read as much, because I just need to read the big words. You know what I'm saying. And so I think I gave it away or put it in storage. I can't remember. But, have a decent Greek interlinear translation and the Doremi Bible, and you're fine. And the New Testament is really all you need to read to grasp these concepts. So it's not difficult, guys. It's really not that hard. Just read it. You'll find really interesting stuff. If you start reading the Bible, you'll start to see things just happen. I can't explain it. It is kind of, it is a divinely inspired document, because you can read the same passage 10 times and you will get 10 things from it. You will get something from it each time that you didn't necessarily get the last time. So yeah. So that's Purgatory and Indulgences, I guess. So I said it'll be a short one. That's it for today. But hopefully I'll do some more soon. Good night.